Okay, so today we're going to be going back to discussing code modularization. If you remember last time, we discussed a proof of concept for modularizing the code, and we manually developed a procedure where we would take one app.js file that is generated by GitWit, and then we would iteratively reduce it into multiple different files that refer to each other and basically come up with a modular code project, which is how all of these React applications are supposed to be developed. So now we have a working backend where this entire manual process that we did last time is done automatically, and today I'm going to showcase that. Okay, so let's just go over what we had discussed last time. We had a React project where we have a single app.js script which has all of the code for the React application we have developed. We want a modularized endpoint or a modularized tool that refers to that endpoint, and what this is supposed to do is that every time you pass it the prompt, the current project tree, and the content of each of the folders inside the content of each of the files inside the project tree, then at every iteration it's supposed to create a new file which is going to modularize the code more and more. So if you have an iterative process that can do this, then every time you call that endpoint, then your project is going to be split into more and more files. That now why we want to do it iteratively is because all of this code generation is happening within LLM, and we want to be able to verify the code, and we also want you to have complete control over the development process. So let's say something goes wrong at one stage, you can easily roll back with the feature that we have on our tool to go back a step, and then you can easily debug like this. Alright, so firstly let's go over the index TypeScript file. Here we have a new function which is the modularized code generation function. Inside the modularized code generation function, you're going to have the prompt which has the instructions required for modularizing the code. It's going to have the project tree, the contents of each of the files inside the project tree, and the guidelines that we're providing. So yeah, and we also selected the models, and we are going to pass in the entire prompt with all of the information about the project to OpenAI. Then we're going to get back a response, and that response is going to be handled by the modularized streaming or TypeScript file. So initially we had the streaming TypeScript file, which is supposed to handle chunk by chunk streaming to the front end. For now, we've just written a working version which is going to not stream it to the front end, but it's going to stream all of the content into the separate files that's coming back. So let's say you pass in a prompt, you give it to OpenAI, we get back our data as a stream. It saves all of the file into one, it saves all of the data that it's getting somewhere, and then after it saves it all, it gets the individual file names for each of the newly created files, and then saves all of the contents into those individual files itself as well. So to demonstrate, we're going to be using this project that we made in GitWit, which is a simple login page where you can just type in username and password, login, and then you have this to-do list where you can add in elements, delete elements, and yeah. So we're going to be using this project, this code that we've generated through GitWit by giving prompts. We're going to use this project is in the template folder here. So we have app.js, we have the code in app.js, which is the code that we just generated through GitWit. This is just one single file that's going to make the entire project. I'm going to run this and show you once. So there we have the same thing that we saw on GitWit running here. And yeah, we can log in, add in elements, yeah. So to test out the endpoint that we've made, the dynamic modularization endpoint, we have a script that we've written, a JavaScript script, which is basically going to take the source directory, and it's going to take the source directory, it's going to create a tree structure from that source directory, which is this project workspace that we're making. And after it makes the tree structure for that directory, it's going to copy the contents of each of the files along with the file names, and it's going to pass this into the model as parameters to the modularized endpoint. It's going to get back the data from the modularized endpoint, and it's going to save it into the multiple files. So we're going to run the modularized endpoint. Now as I run the modularized endpoint, the prompt is displayed here. This prompt has the current tree structure, which is just app.js, and the code content for app.js. Alright, so now that the modularized endpoint has run, we've gotten back two new files, which is app.js and to-do item.js. and these are saved into these files here. So the content has changed for app.js. As you can see, it's referring to to-do item, and to-do item is a newly created file. So this is now, the code has now been modularized into two files. App.js does not have all of the contents of the code. It's been split into app.js and to-do item.js. So now we can run another iteration of this process. So now this time when I run the endpoint, the prompt is going to have the tree structure for the new project as an app.js, to-do item.js, both of them. And it's going to pass in the contents for both the files, as it's going to pass in the content for app.js, to-do item.js. Yeah. So yeah, now the second iteration has ran, and it's created a another JavaScript file, which is the login form.js. So now as you can see, the login form.js is this script here, and app.js refers to login form.js, to do item.js. So now there's two new files that have been created that is being referred to by app.js, and app.js has reduced in size, and the appropriate code are in these two JavaScript files. So now we're just going to test and see if the code still runs. So I'm going to start yes, as you can see, the code still runs, and yeah, so the code still runs. We did the process iteratively, but we just have a backend running which is automating all of the process that we discussed and we did last time manually. So yeah, now the next steps are going to be to basically make this work more reliably. There's still some issues where we're getting back the data that we're getting streamed back is not reliable, and it's not giving the correct outputs or in the right format that we want, so we're not able to split up the files properly. So we just have to test out a lot of things right now, and also we need to change this to, instead of saving complete files, to work with streaming, and then we have to integrate this with our front end. So there's still a lot of work to do, but yeah, we basically this video was to showcase that we got the proof of concept working on the back end, and we've automated the whole process, and yeah, it's working in code as of now. Thank you.